one of my videos on the Rearden Atlas. So this is the Rearden Atlas mount, and I have it on a Diligent Defense Enticer S, which is my first and only can, but I love it so far. One of the questions I got on my video on the Rearden Atlas and why I chose it over the Dead Air Chemo is a really good question, and I guess I didn't do a good job explaining why in the video, so I'm making a dedicated video to this. Why do I use an Atlas that has like a threaded mount instead of just direct threading onto my rifle? Let me tell you what's going on. The Dead Air QD mount is really good. The Chemo mount is really good for a durable, high round count application, from my understanding. Now, this is what a lot of people have reported. I had one for a handful of months, and I ended up selling it. I like the muzzle devices, I like the mount itself, but for me, it just wasn't a good fit. And I would absolutely be willing to repurchase a Chemo for a different rifle that I'll talk about later if I end up doing that. But for me, what I found was the Rearden Atlas. Now, this uses the Q Plan B type mount, which is a, let me show you a muzzle device on an actual rifle. This is a, it's not going to autofocus, standard flash hider type muzzle device, and it's got a threaded area. It's got a threaded area, and in front of, or forward of the threaded area, there's a chamfer, and that allows for a seat of the suppressor. Now, I'm going to install this really quickly off camera, and you'll be able to hear what's happening. There you go. Okay, so that is the suppressor mounted on to my 12.5-inch Connecticut Other rifle. This has been forewarned as well. So this firearm is kind of my go-to up-close firearm. It's a really good build that I was able to do. I do have other rifles, a 14.5 pin and welded, a 16-inch, and a 20-inch upper. And this has another Rearden mount, or Rearden flash hider. This is their 3-prong, which is pretty cool actually. But anyway, I'll go back to this in a second. This is an awesome package, and I really like it. I may, at some point, get a dedicated 5.56 suppressor for this gun, probably a Polonium K or something similar to that, and direct thread it onto this gun. It'll live on this gun. This gun is tuned mostly to run with a suppressor. I have an H3 buffer in the back of this, and it runs pretty well with both steel case and full power ammo with a suppressor. When you take the suppressor off, you save the weight of the suppressor, which is less than a pound, but it's still a pound thereabouts, or less than a pound, sitting on the end of the gun. But it's also a shorter package. So let me just put this on, and I will demonstrate. I will stand here, and I'll just aim out to the side, and you can see where the end of the muzzle is. So if I kind of go into the gun, that's where it goes. It's kind of the size of my torso plus gun. If I put the suppressor on, we extend the overall length. I have a tape measure around here. I'll grab a tape measure and we'll do this right. But I extend the overall length off camera, so I am definitely forward. The length of your muzzle from your body is not that big of a deal unless you're really, really close up. And then here's how you mitigate that. If you're that close that someone can grapple onto it, you just pull your gun back. You can also twist your torso, but I don't like doing that. Pull your gun back, and now you're way more compact. You can, I'm unloaded by the way, you can pump off a couple rounds here and then go back onto target if you need to. Now, direct threading will give me a shorter overall package. There's more volume between the first baffle and the back because it's not filled up with a flash hider that doesn't do anything when it's inside a suppressor. And it also It also weighs less. You also have one less mechanical interface, so you don't have tolerance stacking, things like that. Now, if I wanted to swap a direct thread onto my 20-inch, I could do that without a problem. Granted, this is a 30 caliber can. I can put it on my 20-inch gun, and when I shoot my 20-inch gun, this thing, whew, squeaky, this thing is so quiet. Sorry for the squeak. But it's also mondo big. For a 5.56, this shoots any ammo screaming out of this barrel. But it is a huge gun. Let me grab that tape measure I said I was going to do. So, tape measure from the tip of the suppressor to the end of the stock is 44.5 inches with the suppressor and the Rearden mounting it. There we go. Without the suppressor, this is still a big rifle. We are at just about 39, including the flash hider. I wouldn't shoot something like, I don't like shooting rifles without flash hiders. We'll get back to that in a second. For the 12.5 bare, sorry, with a flash hider, otherwise bare, to the end of the brace, we're at 31.25 inches to where I set the brace. And then with the suppressor, we're at 37 inches. So again, not huge. We're still, with the suppressor, overall less than our 20-inch gun, but not that much. These are both set up on a table right now. But the big reason that I have, and the first main reason that I have this on a Rearden instead of a QD. Now on a QD, those are 1/2 by 28 thread barrels. Sorry, not on a QD, on a direct thread. Those are 1/2 by 28 thread barrels. I could easily undo the suppressor, lock it down onto those barrels, I'm good to go. But this is a 30 caliber can, and this is a 300 blackout rifle. So similar kind of thing. It's a 16-inch upper as opposed to a lot of 300 blackouts, but that's what I can have, and that's what I built out in my state, so I could have it on a lower before there was like an other option that was available. The thread on here is 5/8 by 24, which is incompatible. So what I would have to do if I had a direct thread on the can is I'd have to swap out the adapter on the back every time I wanted to put on a 30 caliber gun. But now, as long as I'm not an idiot and put a smaller bore suppressor on here, now everything with a Rearden Atlas or similar type of mounting can work on my 300 blackout firearm or my 5.56 guns just fine. This suppressor is made for 30 caliber. It works for 308, 300 blackout, all of those. It's also rated for 5.56. So it's not the most efficient option when you're shooting 5.56, but it works great for those 30 caliber options. Just for a kind of length thing here. Again, this is a 16-inch gun. You can see it's, let's compare it to the 20-inch. It is about the same size, maybe a hair more than the 20-inch. Again, 16-inch barrel, 300 blackout. But capability, if I was hunting or if I was doing self-defense-y stuff, I would trust the 300 blackout to have a little more spunk than a 20-inch 5.56 unless I'm shooting at pretty long ranges. This guy has a scope on it. This just has, it's not quite a red dot, it's a Holosun 503G dot, but it's the Primary Arms ACSS reticle in here, which is pretty cool. I've had a magnifier behind this in the past, and it works fine for distance shooting. Not great for target identification because you don't have that magnification behind it, but if you put a magnifier on here, it's pretty good. And lightweight. There we go. The second reason that I have muzzle devices is that sometimes I shoot without a suppressor. Now, I don't take my guns over state lines often, but there are instances where I've taken them to different states, and transporting a suppressor, not that big of a deal. However, there are a handful of states, especially because I live in the Northeast, around me that it's not legal to have a suppressor. So if I'm not going to a 2 or 3 day class, I'm just not going to worry about it. I'm going to take my gun where it's legal to have the gun, but I won't take the suppressor with me, and I will shoot with a bare muzzle. Now, I don't take this gun that often. This one has a brake on it, but you do have the benefit of having a muzzle brake on here. Now, if you've ever shot a rifle with a bare muzzle, it is miserable, especially a 5.56. It gives a huge muzzle blast. Having a flash hider, even a little guy like this, does a ton. On top of that, flash hiders, now this one has a 3-prong, and you can angle it, you can time it, so you have a prong at the 6 o'clock position, and then one at the kind of 2 o'clock-ish, and one at the 10 o'clock-ish. That's really nice when you're shooting prone on the ground. It won't put as much blast downward and then cause a bunch of dust to come up. Some still will come up around your muzzle, but that helps you out. And then on top of that, if you really want to go for a short boy, and in the state of Connecticut, unless you go for an SBR, well, previously, I don't know what the deal is with SBRs now, but this guy is technically an SBR federally. But the flash hider on this gun is about the smallest package you can have for a rifle. Obviously, you can go smaller for a 5.56. Arguably, you don't really want to go smaller. So I know a lot of people do the 10.3s and 10.5s, but I think 12.5 is kind of the perfect length for a 5.56 or larger. But something like this is a really small package. On top of that, like I said, transporting, that's your upper. Now, this upper bare is really lightweight and only 21 inches long to the back of the forward assist. This is a small package and easy to throw in a backpack or a carry bag or something if you're driving. If you add the suppressor onto this and have it direct threaded, you probably aren't going to be taking off that direct thread suppressor every time, and this adds a significant size where it's not really feasible to throw this in a backpack anymore, and we're at 26.5 inches. So that's what we've got here. So that's the reason that I have a suppressor with a QD mount. It might not be the best option for you. The best option for you may be a dead air chemo mount, which is fine. And again, I'm just saying this about me and not about anyone else. I think the Rearden is a good option for me because, to summarize, number one, I have multiple guns and multiple calibers and multiple thread pitches on the barrels that I'm putting it on. So instead of changing the adapter in the back of the suppressor over and over and over whenever I have to change calibers, I just leave the QD. I don't have to bring tools. I don't have to bring anything to the range. I can just pop it off, put it on the next gun, go to town. Obviously, I have to be a little more careful because I'm not swapping end caps or anything like that. So right now this works. If I add complexity, now I've got to use a little more of my brain. The second reason is because sometimes I shoot unsuppressed, and it's easier to take off a suppressor if you don't have a direct thread. That's it. If you're building a gun and you choose to have it fully suppressed all the time, whether it's a fully suppressed 5.56 or it's a like a 9-inch 300 blackout or something like that, and you say, yeah, you know what, I'm always going to have this suppressed, go for it. That makes a lot of sense for people to do the direct thread. You can also tune the gun to run with that specific setup. If all of a sudden you're going between unsuppressed and suppressed on like a 5.56, your carrier velocity changes significantly, and you really have to be careful about getting your gun kind of gnarly. Sometimes if you have it really dirty, it won't run unsuppressed with the ammo that you have. If you're using, oh, I have some right here. Stuff like this, 55 grain 223 steel case. So whatever it is, whatever works for you, figure it out. Anyway, that's all I got, guys. Stay safe out there, do your part, and train with what you carry. See ya.